Hello and welcome. Today we are diving deep into a topic that is absolutely central to the integrity of finance, fraud. And we're not just going to define it, we're going to show you how auditors learn to think and act like detectives to actually uncover it.
Hey, it is so great to have you with us here on the Audit Guidebook channel. Now, what you're watching is Module 2 of our Practical Guide to Audit. So whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro looking for a refresher, you are in exactly the right place to sharpen your skills. All right, let's jump right in. Look, before you can find fraud, you have to know exactly what you're looking for, right? So just like any detective, our very first step is to understand the nature of the crime. From an auditor's perspective, what is fraud, really?
So here it is, the textbook definition. Fraud is a deliberate act. It's on purpose. It's meant to deceive someone for some kind of gain. In our world, this basically means one of two things. Someone is either cooking the books or they have their hand in the company cookie jar. And the single most important word here, the one that changes everything, it's intentional.
And that brings us to maybe the most critical distinction we make in an audit. The bright line that separates a simple error from actual fraud is intent. See, an error is an accident. A slip of the keyboard, a miscalculation, it's a mistake. But fraud is a calculated act. It is deliberate, it is deceptive, and it's designed to be hidden. One is an oops, the other is a crime.
So when we auditors are on the hunt, we're typically looking at two main buckets of fraud. First, you've got fraudulent financial reporting. This is the big picture stuff, management cooking the books, maybe overstating revenue to make the company look way healthier than it actually is. Then you have misappropriation of assets. This is much more direct. We're talking about theft. Think of an employee creating a fake ghost employee in the payroll system and just pocketing the salary. That's a classic example. Okay, so we know what we're looking for, but how do we even begin the search? Well, I'll tell you. It doesn't start with calculators and spreadsheets. It all starts with having the right mindset. This isn't just some technical exercise. It's about learning to think like a true skeptic. The core principle here, the one you've got to live by, is called professional skepticism. It is, without a doubt, an auditor's most vital defense. Now, this isn't about being cynical or assuming everyone's a liar. Not at all. It's about being objective and simply not assuming they're telling the truth either. Your job is to trust, but verify. You have to challenge assumptions, question everything, and stay alert for anything that just doesn't feel right. So with that skeptical mindset locked in, where does the real investigation begin? Well, it starts by scoping out the scene, identifying the areas where fraud is most likely to be hiding. And that, for us, is the risk assessment. Now, this isn't just guesswork. It is a systematic investigation. We start by discussing risks with management to get the view from the top. But then, and this is crucial, we go down to the ground floor and inquire. We talk to people in operations and finance because they often see things management doesn't. After that, we let the data talk by analyzing it for weird trends or anomalies. This helps us pinpoint the classic elements of what we call the fraud triangle: pressure, opportunity, and rationalization. And our analysis often points us to a few usual suspects, the common hotspots for fraud. You'll see revenue recognition is way up there at the top of the list. And why is that? Well, because there's so much pressure to meet sales targets. Cash handling, that's another big one, because let's face it, cash is king and it's pretty easy to steal. These are the areas where we really focus our investigative energy.
All right, we've found the high-risk areas. Now it's time to open our toolkit. These are the specific fraud-focused procedures we use to really dig for evidence and hopefully uncover the truth.
Let's look at some of these awesome tools. With journal entry testing, we're looking for major red flags, like an entry that was made at 2 a.m. on a Sunday, or one for a perfect round number like $1 million. Kind of suspicious, right? With confirmations, we go directly to outside parties, like a customer or a bank, to verify balances. Any little discrepancy there is a huge warning sign. And one of my personal favorites, surprise procedures. Nothing catches someone off guard like an unannounced cash count. It can catch them red-handed. So we've run our procedures, we've used our tools. The final stage of this whole investigation is about connecting the dots. It's about recognizing those subtle clues, and, if we do find something, knowing the exact steps we have to take next. These red flags are so often the smoke that leads you to the fire. An employee who suddenly starts driving a brand new luxury car while making a pretty modest salary? Yeah, that's a red flag. Management that constantly overrides the rules or gets really defensive during an audit? That's a major red flag. Even something like high turnover in the finance department can be a sign that people with integrity are leaving because they just don't like what they see. So, what happens if we actually suspect fraud? Well, we don't just run around sounding the alarm. We have a very clear professional and ethical duty to follow a protocol. First, we gather more evidence. We have to be sure. Then we escalate. We take our findings to a level of management above the people we suspect are involved. And finally, our ultimate responsibility is to report everything to those in charge of governance, like the audit committee or the board of directors.
Wow, we have covered a lot of ground, from defining the crime all the way to filing the final report. So, what does this all mean for you? Let's just boil it down to the essentials, the key takeaways.
Ultimately, detecting fraud isn't about one single action. It is a continuous process. It all begins with your mindset, that professional skepticism we talked about. From there, you perform a systematic risk assessment, you deploy targeted procedures, you evaluate the controls, you keep an eye out for those red flags, and finally, you communicate your findings with absolute integrity. So we'll leave you with a question to really put you in the investigator's seat. Imagine you're on an audit and you see several different control weaknesses. Based on everything we've just discussed, which one do you investigate first, and why? Your answer really says a lot about how you think like an auditor.
Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. If you found it valuable, please do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button for the Audit Guidebook channel. We have a lot more modules in our Practical Guide to Audit series ready and waiting for you, so you can keep building those investigative skills. We'll see you next time.